Board of Commissioners, December 9th, 2014 work session. We'll welcome our invited guests and elected officials. Court Clerk, Treva Shelton's here today. Treva, raise your hand. Mayor Debbie's here, raise your hand. Any other elected officials? Oh, Mark Matthews, Kennesaw Mayor, thank you for being here. And former Chairman Jerry Sheridan, thank you for being here. I'll call the meeting to order and remind you to turn off all cell phones, Nextels, and pagers. Mark, you have people wishing to speak. Somebody signed up. For our invocation and pledge, we have Jason Phillips, our county attorney. Would you stand with me if you're able?
Dear Lord, we come to you now. We thank you for this opportunity to meet once again. Father, all authority is ordained and established by you. Father, today I'd ask you to be with these 5 men here as we deal with a busy agenda. I'd ask that you would be with those that would succeed them. Give them all the wisdom to make decisions that are consistent with what your will is for Paulding County. Father, we seek your guidance, and we ask you to be in this room to give it. Father, as we deal with the busy agenda, toward the end of each year, all our agendas seem to be packed with things, whether it's professional or business or governmental or whether it's personal. Father, we need to step back and remember what time of the year it is. It's Christmas time. Father, help us not forget that this is the time that you sent a Savior so that all of us could be with you forever, despite our shortcomings, despite how we don't add up. We thank you for sending your Son on this time so many years ago. And we lift this prayer up to you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Beautiful prayer. Minutes, the November 11th, 2014 work session minutes and November 11th, 2014 board meeting minutes are available for your review. Now it's time for announcements, and we've got a couple. I don't know if you all get the Georgia Trend magazine, but Wellstar Paulding was listed as one of the top hospitals in the state. There's over 130 hospitals in the state, and they were recognized along with Cobb Hospital and Douglas Hospital, and then of course large hospital Wellstar. So they made every category, but I'm proud that Paulding Wellstar made the Georgia Trend top. I'd like to read a letter that came in from Kellen Ellsbury with the Paulding School District. I'd like a few folks to step forward with Steve Turner, Wayne Barron, Chris Hendricks, Chris Robinson, Scott Green, and Terrell Clark. If y'all come up to the front while I read the letter. It's often that we get criticized here for things that we don't do or don't get accomplished or whatever, but on occasion, we hear some really, really good things about people. And this letter came to me. I felt like it was worth recognizing these folks. So I'll read it today from the Paulding, to the Paulding Board of Commissioners. Gentlemen, on behalf of the Paulding County School District Facility Department, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Paulding County Board of Commissioners and the various governmental departments that work with our district on a regular basis. The school district has fast-tracked our projects during the periods when students are not in class, such as our summer break and 4 smaller breaks during the school year. It takes a great amount of preparation for the projects and cooperation between the district and the various county departments to ensure that they are completed on time. If not for this cooperation, we would not be able to have schools ready for students when the breaks are over. With the proceeds from the school bond approval by the voters in 2007, the school district has constructed 6 new elementary schools, 2 new middle schools, and 1 new high school. We have added classrooms, additions to elementary schools, 3 middle schools, and all 5 high schools. Every project was completed and ready for occupancy on schedule. This has not been possible without the great partnership between our architects, our general contractor, the county government, and the district staff. I would especially like to recognize Steve Turner with the Permit Department, Wayne Barron and Chris Hendricks with the Paulding County Fire Department, Chris Robinson with Community Development, Scott Green with the Paulding County Department of Transportation, and Terrell Clark with the Water and Sewer. It is because of the dedication of these and other Paulding County employees that we're able to provide a safe, healthy environment for our students and staff. Ken Ellsberg, would y'all stand with me and give them a great hand?
All right, ladies, throw it there.
Thank you all. Again, thank you.
Got you on video.
Tabitha, I believe you have a public announcement about a public auction.
Yes, sir. Over the past couple of weeks, we have advertised for a public auction that's going to be a little bit bigger than one we've had in quite some time. The sheriff has a couple of items, or quite a few items on this list, and I wanted to give you a rundown. It's going to have, the auction will take place on December the 19th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m.
We're at.
at the sheriff's office, in between the sheriff's office and Fleet. Some of the items on this list, and they are listed on Paulding.gov under I want to view all bids, and you'll see a list of the surplus items. But some of the categories of items that they have on there are push mower and mulcher, riding mowers, motorcycles, four-wheelers, some equipment such as a welder, chipper, pressure washers, generators, some air conditioning units, several building inventory items, and a dog kennel. Those are some of the items that the sheriff has available for auction and sale on that day. And we have several Crown Victorias, our regular surplus items that we send to public auction. A lot of times we're gonna sell those at the Fleet Department on the 19th. They'll be in a sealed bid form. They'll be accepting bids from 10 until 4. Then they'll close those out and they'll post that afternoon all of the bids and the winning bid. And the items they've asked that they be picked up on the 22nd and the 23rd. No later than the 22nd and the 23rd.
Fantastic. Do you have any questions for Captain? Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to tell you that today we have a road opening ceremony. It's Willow Springs Road. We've had a bridge there forever, and we're bypassing that bridge, keeping the bridge for a historical monument, and bypassing that so now buses, ambulances, and trucks can pass over our new bridge, and that'll be open today at 3 o'clock. And Scott has some new soil out there with, be careful that you don't park on the sides of the road. You'll have designated parking, forced parking, but you're all invited to come out to Willow Springs Bridge for that dedication. Anything else you'd like to add?
That's great. They can park in the road near the bridge site, and we'll do the opening on the bridge itself.
Fantastic. I think this is a long time coming, and again, I think it helps our bus system, our ambulance service, so my hat's off to you, Scott. Great job. Well done. Under invited guests today, we have Metro Ambulance Service, Pete Giannis. Say that right?
Good.
Good enough? And you have several members you may want to introduce with you today. Yes, sir. Give us an update on Metro Ambulance.
Well, good morning.
Good morning.
It's my privilege to introduce.
And this is Kelly Comfort, our IT person. He is the roving Vanna. He has the computer control.
Terry Robinson, our operations manager for Paulding County, and Mark Matthews, our government relations manager for Metro.
Do we need a double assistant?
There we go.
All right. Well, it's my privilege to be here today to give you a quarterly report as we've done last month. And I want to start off with some great news. Karen, which I just introduced, has just received her certification from the Georgia EMS Association's management program for EMS. She just accomplished that, I think, the last 6 months, going on and off, and we're very, very proud of her. We are anticipating 3 more ambulances to arrive within the next 2 weeks. 1 is a replacement, 2 will be added on as additional 12-hour units as we start going into our peak deployment plan to meet demand. We're going to be utilizing a 12-hour deployment on a few of these units. This is what's going to make the difference between good response and excellent response. So we're very excited to be putting those ambulances on the road. We will be opening our new headquarters within probably the 1st of February, which will be located at 260 International Parkway, Suites 116 in Dallas, right behind the new hospital. We're very excited about that. That's going to allow us a centralized location right by the new hospital where we can exchange supplies, different resources, oxygen, all kinds of things that will reduce the logistics bottle, as you can imagine, the bottleneck that occurs trying to resupply ambulances. So we're right by the hospital, which will make things a lot easier. So we're very excited about that. And again, we do this in efforts not only to deliver better response time, which is important, but the quality of the care that's received by the patient once the ambulance arrives there. What we have here is, like last time, we have the months broken down: September, October, November. This is September. And I'm just going to break down some of the key components. We responded to a total of 760 calls for service. We interacted with the patient. That means that we at least made contact one way or the other. The call wasn't canceled 681 times. The average response time was 8.3 minutes. There were 6 cardiac arrests. The device that we're using, which is a state-of-the-art device from Medtronics, was utilized 5 out of the 6 times. It did meet protocol the one time. It did not meet protocol, so it was not utilized. And we were able to deliver 9 different special events and 2 standbys. If you look further on the report, you'll see that the gender breakup has stayed consistent from previous months. Of those 760, 395 demographic report was female, 286 was male. The most popular, unfortunately, I'll say the word popular, most common response was for a traffic accident, followed by breathing, followed by a sick call, followed by falls. So those are the key components of what we respond to and make up the majority of our responses for the month of September. For the month of October, we responded to 820 calls, of which we made patient contact 731 times for an average response time of 8 minutes. We had 8 arrests reported, of which the Lucas device was utilized 6 times. We had 14 community events and then 3 standbys. And again, the traffic accidents, breathing again was number 2, sick call was number 3, and falls was number 4. We anticipate that the sick calls will move up as the flu season hits, so we're going to see kind of those numbers fluctuate a little bit as we go. Again, it was females 426, males 305, and the average age, well, I'm going to say the average age, the majority of the calls, I'm going to say it's 60%, were for those 55 and over. So we kind of have a little change in the response criteria. November we saw 817 responses, 716 patient interactions, for a total of 7.8 minute average response. I do not have the data yet. It has not been pulled from our quality assurance to give you the arrest, but we'll have that shortly for the next go around. We did have 14 special events and 3 standbys that we did. Again, here we have the traffic, number 1, the breathing problems, number 2, falls moved up to number 3, and then sick calls was number 4. The pattern didn't change at all on the demographics. It was still females, 433, males, 283. And the major age group that we responded to was 55 and over, which was 60% of the responses. So all in all, we have seen the responses stabilize. We've seen the type of calls. We're heading now into the flu season, so we're going to be seeing a real change in sick calls and all these different, so I can tell you that we urge you to get your flu shot. So that's a key thing, and it really, really makes a difference. We're very excited. Again, I'm going to bring back a couple of the points here with the new units that are being brought in with the 12-hour deployment, which you'll see being launched out from the new station. Those will be the ones that really attack the demand when you have the most amount of calls coming in. And that will make the biggest impact. With the hospital now having some time under their belts and being able to take more and more patients as time progresses, we're very proud to be partnered with Wellstar on this. You will see a much quicker availability of units to come back into service instead of going all the way to Kennestone or to Cobb. They're going to be here in your county, able to turn around and be able to respond immediately to calls. And that's the kind of things that, when you start tweaking for better response, makes a big difference. So we're very happy with that.
How many ambulances does that give you operating in, or based in Baldwin County? I know you have a huge fleet and you pull them in as you need them, but.
We'll have a total of 10 here. And it'll probably peak, it'll start peaking close to 8, 9, where the busiest times of the day, of the week. We're going to start doing a little bit of more of a dynamic type response versus having the ambulances stationed at different areas versus having them coming out of a fixed location, kind of like the fire department does, which is fine. It's just a different type of approach, different kind of logistics to get the calls. And I think you're going to.
When are your peak times?
Well, it's we have a computer for that, but I mean, for us, it's pretty much, as you're probably aware of, it's you know it as well as I do. It's when everyone's going off to work and when everyone's coming back, and that's when the most amount of accidents occur. Although at nighttime we do see an influx during flu season of calls, responding to sick calls, but those are the 3 primary times. So the next 3 months coming forward, that's what we're going to see as the peak times. So you're seeing like 3 to 7, and then from 6:30 to 10. Those are the two peaks time of responses.
When y'all took over, were you working with approximately about 5 ambulances at the time you took over?
It was around 5.
4 to 5.
We're replacing 1 unit right now, and it's interesting. At the last commission meeting, while I was standing up here, hope it doesn't happen again. Knock on wood. We had an ambulance rear-ended and knocked into a ditch, and the crew, I guess we could say it's the Mercedes advertisement held true. The crew was able to return work very briefly. They were a little shaken up, but not injured, as you would expect from an accident when the ambulance is upside down on its roof and hit immensely hard. So we're replacing that vehicle, and we're very excited that we're going to be adding additional. But it's one of those things that occurs in our line of business and in public safety, where an ambulance or a police car or a fire engine gets run into from time to time.
Talk to us a little bit about catheterization. I understand, are we set up now with a heart cath lab at the hospital, or is that coming?
That'll be coming. We're capable of sending the 12-lead EKG from the ambulance to Wellstar Paulding, and as soon as they get the green light, Karen, do you have an idea when that's?
I think for the next year
They have to
schedule cast.
They still have to do that. So they're in their internship with the state, the licensing division, in order to do that before. But we're still able to send them if we have to over to Wellstar Kennestone or to Wellstar Cobb. So the 12 lead gets sent by cellular waves. So when you arrive at the hospital, instead of going into the emergency room and maybe spending 20, 30, 40 minutes of doing the same process, that strip of your EKG goes straight to the cath lab. So if the cardiologist feels that you need immediate intervention, they'll pull you straight up. And it saves, on average, I think the last time we clocked it with Wellstar, it's a 44-minute savings of time.
Wow.
And that can make a big difference.
Pete, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Bid awards, award the US 278 Trail Project to Georgia Developmental Partners, the lowest responsible bidder, in the amount of $339,352.53. We have Tabitha.
Good morning. If you will recall, we bid this project in June of 2014, and that price exceeded the estimate. It's because the time frame was escalated somewhat, and we only had one bidder participate, so we threw that one out and rebid the project. This time we have 9 bidders participate, and they have a little longer, I think they have 180 days, Scott can address that, to complete the project. But this project will install a sidewalk to connect the Veterans Park to the Silver Comet Trail, and the low bid was $339,352.53. With Georgia Development Partners. We have not done work with them, but DOT has researched their experience. So I'll let Scott give you
The funding of that.
It's recreational SPLOST dollars.
Scott, you want to?
Yes, I'd like to add to that. We have checked into Georgia Development Partners. They are pre-qualified with the state, which is one of our requirements for most DOT work. And we have letters of reference from 3 former municipalities that they did work with. They've got a good track record from what we can tell, and we're going to recommend approval as far as their qualifications as well as their bid. I would like to add, there's an operational side of this trail once it is completed next summer. It is a 180-day contract, should be underway by January with your approval. And so we're looking at a midsummer completion. This will extend the Comet Trail spur about a half mile between Tara Drummond Park and Veterans Park here on campus. And that trail system is going to be an 8-foot wide trail. We'll connect from our intersection all the way to the traffic light at Seaboard. And it will become an extension of our park, and we will need to maintain it. So I just want to make you aware that there will be some landscaping, ongoing maintenance.
Will it go along 278? I didn't get a map. Where does it actually go to get from Veterans Park to?
Okay. The trail runs along South Main Street off of our intersection here, our east entrance. It will run up to the intersection at 278, and then it will run roughly between the pavement and the right-of-way on the south side of 278. It won't be right up on shoulder grade. It will be set down along the slope, so it will be sort of isolated from traffic and a little more secluded. It'll have good visibility for security reasons, and we'll landscape that whole corridor. And then it will come up to the existing crosswalk that reaches over to Tara Drummond Park. And so I think it's a good layout. It will sort of clean up that area, I think, and it'll have a lot of visibility, so I think it will be a safe location. And other than that, we just want you to be aware that we're sort of committing ourselves to some landscaping ongoing. We'll need to execute a permit with the state that is ready to be signed. We'll need to go to the chairman for signature, and we agree to maintain it after the project is accepted.
We have to maintain all of that right away along that.
Yeah, just as we are with Silver Comet Trail and some of our other park facilities.
There's no new traffic light associated with the crossing of 278?
It will not. For now, we will have just a crosswalk crossing coming out of our campus on the east entrance here. But there's good visibility. We think that's a good location for now. that's something we'd have to address if we see enough traffic. We may have to look at adding some kind of pedestrian control there.
Any other questions? Thank you, Kirk.
Thank you.
Number 2, approve the purchase of a tractor from the lowest responsive bidder, Sneed Ag Supply and Services, in the amount of $52,000. I believe this is for our sewer department.
Yes, sir. During the budget process last year, the sewer department requested a tractor to maintain the copper mine spray fields as well as cut the sewer right-of-way. They have since evaluated that request, and they've requested a little bit higher grade tractor, a little bit bigger tractor, to be able to meet their needs. The low bid is $52,000 with Sneed Ag and Services out of Cartersville.
Any questions? Number 3, approve the purchase of an International 4300 SBA 4x2 to the lowest responsive bidder, Russ Centers of Georgia, in the amount of $80,259. I believe this is like a F-750 type vehicle.
Yes, sir. In the
For DOT.
Yes, sir. In the general fund budget, DOT requested an F-750. In gathering those bids, Tim included the international as a bid, and they came in as the low bid. So it's changed it just a little bit, but we get it a better price for the same type vehicle.
Okay.
Any questions?
Any questions? Thank you very much. Thank you. Reports from committees and departments. Number 1, we have a discussion that we started back early in the summer from Commissioner Graham, expanding homestead exemption. So we asked to discuss this.
Yeah, just to, of course, anytime you talk about property taxes, it's a difficult subject because number 1, it's a touchy subject. Number 2, property taxes is based on the value of your home and something we call a millage rate, which in reality it's a tax rate. And of course, over the since 2009, the state has gotten involved in all this with limiting certain things. But currently, by state law, we have homestead exemption of $2,000 for everyone that owns their own home and lives in that home. And that is an exemption from property tax if you live in that. The school system of Paulding County, that $2,000 exemption costs them $1,205,000. The fire district, it costs $198,000, and then to the county M&O, it costs $464,000. What I had proposed and talked about was expanding that homestead exemption on maintenance and operation. When you expand it, for every $2,000, for instance, in 2014 we had 31,914 homeowners that were living in their home. For every $2,000 you expand that, it costs the county, or it reduces the amount of county M&O you collect by roughly $464,000. And of course, that's money that you have to decrease your budget by. Now, in the past, prior to 2009, as values went up, if you didn't change your millage rate, it was not perceived as a tax increase by the public, even though the public paid more taxes, which gave you more revenue. But the state got involved, and now we have to do what's called a rollback study, which basically says, okay, how much money did you collect last year based on the value of your property? How much are you going to collect this year? So if your property values went up, which they did last year, that means that you can't collect more money unless you advertise that as a tax increase. The concept of looking at this, and I know this is lots of numbers, but is you would think that if values went up and I gave people an exemption, I could deduct the two. So that if my values went up by $63 million, that this exemption I gave you, that I would subtract that out. Well, the state doesn't work that way. So in reality, what they do is they basically double hit the county. That they say that, okay, yes, your values went up, but this exemption that you're now giving that, we don't care. So in essence, if you roll back the millage rate, or if your values went up, or even if the values didn't go up, the fact that you added that exemption, you would have to reduce your millage rate. You would actually collect less money. So it's a good concept. The homeowner or the landowner in Paulding County bears 85% of all taxes, property tax. That's one of the driving reasons why it's very important to expand or diversify our tax base. In order to make this happen, you have to ask the legislature to make a resolution from the state. It would actually be voted on by the public, and then, of course, the next public election is not until 2016. But the question is, as a commission, which I don't know that there's time to decide that this year, but, you know, are you willing to reduce your revenue, or either, even though you're not going to collect any more money, you're going to have to advertise a tax increase because of the state's formula? So,
It's a situation where each year about $500,000 would be where you'd have to make up in other areas. And I don't know the will of this board, but if you advertise a tax increase and you don't receive any more money or less, it seems to be pretty unpopular. But again, we'll continue to have these discussions. As Tommy says, our homeowners and landowners have had the brunt of the taxes, and trying to do everything to bring in industry to change that. But we'll continue to have this discussion. Anybody else want to make a comment on it?
I appreciate your work on it, Tommy. I appreciate you taking the time to bring it to us again and look into it.
Yeah, I say the same thing, Tommy.
Very much.
Okay. County Administrator Mike Jones, he would need to talk to us about having a special call meeting as we get ready for our reservoir project.
Yeah, I'll be brief. You know, back to what Tommy just went over, Chairman, yourself and our Finance Director, Tabitha Pollard, and I looked at those homestead exemptions, and you and I and Tabitha and Tommy and all these boards deal with these numbers and these budgets all the time. And it took, I don't know, 20 minutes of looking at it before you could really get your arms around what data you were really looking at. And once you completely understood it, it made complete sense for a homeowner to follow this. But the procedures that you have to use in order to implement it over such a long period of time is very convoluted. And if it takes us 15 or 20 minutes to understand what it is we're looking at, I don't know how you could convey that to 155,000 people who have their own opinions about what the taxes ought to be. But those are some of the issues that y'all wrestle with often, and I'm glad that you are wrestling with that. I need to have a special called meeting. This will be the first time I've asked you for this. There's a couple of issues that I want to bring to your attention. And Pat, if you want to hand those packets out to them, I'm sorry I did that earlier. There are two issues that I need to discuss. One is the CMAR contract. That is the contract that Kelly came before you at Brown and Caldwell several weeks ago, that you approved PC Construction to begin work on the Etowah River intake in support of the Richland Creek Water Supply Program. And it also included the 18 million gallon water treatment facility, and it also included the reservoir intake structure. This meeting was the meeting where they were supposed to bring back to you their 30% design estimate. It looked pretty early on that the design estimates were going to exceed what our expectations were. So Arcadis, the design engineer, PC Construction, Brown and Caldwell, and the water system team met, discussed items that we could do differently that could reduce those costs. Well, when we did that, they needed additional time to cost those items. So it was either bring you a bad number today or ask you to come back 10 days from now and give you one that's more reflective. I've spoken to each of you, and obviously the right thing to do is just to push that off a few days. On the 18th, you will not be voting on a contract for that 30%. You will make a vote, but your vote will essentially say, yes, I see the 30% number, y'all are on track, keep proceeding to the 60% number. At that point, we'll do a contract, but that'll occur sometime in the middle of next year. So you won't be approving a contract on the 18th, but you'll be authorizing them to continue moving forward. You've already placed them under contract to prepare those numbers. The second thing that we'll discuss on the 18th is this map that you have in front of you. That light shaded area is the reservoir property that we already own, and that little piece to the right is a piece we acquired about 4 years ago to get us access out onto Highway 61. The 77 acres at the top, that is something the state is requiring us to purchase. That's where the dam will be located. So that piece of property would sit 115 feet below an earthen dam. We're going to acquire that. All 3 of these tracts come from Four Star Properties, Four Star Group. The 112 acres. Go ahead.
You said it's where the dam, that's actually below the dam.
It's below the dam.
The
dam is
we already have the land.
We have the land for that, but this land will sit 115 feet below the dam. So this will be a Category 1 dam, and the state has strongly indicated that we need to go purchase that, and by strongly indicating that, they're telling us. So we are going to acquire that piece of property. We've negotiated a price with Four Star. They're going to clear cut that for us. They've reflected the value of the timber on that land, and we've negotiated a price of $2,000 an acre for that property. The 112 acres that you see, that's the middle piece on the right. The 30% CMAR design contract that we're going to be looking at on the 18th contains an 18 million gallon treatment plant. That treatment plant will be located on that 112 acres. The public access point to the reservoir will be located on the north side of that 112 acres. So that piece we always knew we were going to acquire. We've had this conversation with Four Star for years, but we didn't have to have it, so we didn't buy it. We're there now. And lastly, well, back to the 112. The negotiated price for that piece of property is $2,400. About 60% of this parcel will be clear cut to make way for the road, for the public access to the reservoir, and the treatment plant. The remaining 40% will be what they term as a 30% residential thinning. So they'll leave the trees to the extent they can. The last piece is the 170 acres. That will be purchased using SWAS dollars. We negotiated a price for them, $3,757 per acre. That will not be clear cut. That will be residential thinned, and that will be a passive use park, Richland Creek Park. It will have camping, day use facilities, pavilions, and things like that. To give you an idea of the size of that, is our director here? We talked about that earlier. How big is White Oak?
97 acres.
97 acres, so this is about twice the size of White Oak Park, so quite a large park.
And that's recreational splosh.
Those will be recreational SPLOST dollars that will fund that. So in essence, we will have a total of right at 1,000 acres around the Richland Creek project, and the property we're buying will have an aggregate cost of right at $2,900 an acre over the entire. I mean, the 359 that we'll be buying, but we'll have more details for you on the 18th. But I did want to bring that to your attention. We have posted that meeting. The public is welcome to attend. It'll be a little bit different than what we normally do because we have a Board of Commissioners work session followed by a break and then a voting session. Both of these topics will be presented to you and you'll take action at that time.
What time is it?
The meeting will be held at 11 a.m. in this room on December 18th.
It's at 11 instead of 10 because we have 2 new commissioners being sworn in that day at 10. So we moved the meeting up to 11 for them to be able to attend this meeting. Part of looking at this is, Mike, if you go back to the left, as we looked at it, the state is going to make us fence in the reservoir. So there is an entrance on this property. There will be a boat ramp, but this is to give some access around the lake because we've got to fence it in and can't really give public access to the outside area of the lake. Explain that.
Yeah, the state sees this as a water supply project. My son sees this as a place to go fishing, and I think he has more folks on his side than the state does in Paulding County. But that is true. We've been authorized one boat ramp, one launch facility, one dock at the reservoir. That may very well change in the future. We certainly hope it does. But right now, it's being controlled as a water supply project. Now, some folks have asked me questions. When this thing is at maximum capacity and you're pulling 36 million gallons a day, how is that going to affect the water level? It's not a noticeable difference. There's over 4 billion gallons of water in the reservoir. So when you pump 36 million gallons out a day, it moves about that much. So there's no danger to the public being out on the lake while we're generating water supply, but nonetheless, the state is restricting access. And yes, Mr. Chairman, they have required us to fence the entire boundary of the project. I have no idea how many miles that is as it stakes around, but if you're in the fencing business, I wouldn't miss that advertisement.
Is that part of our budget
It is.
now?
It is now. It has been. We've known this for some period of time. We just haven't liked it.
Thank you, Mike.
Yes, sir.
So we'll take action on this a little later today, but that'll be a call meeting on December the 18th at 11 o'clock. No one asked to be participation on agenda items, so we move into the consent agenda. Number one, adopt resolution 14-34, reappointing Arthur L. Fulbright and Johnny McMurrows to the Paulding County Board of Assessors. Number two, adopt job classification assistant supervisor meter reader division for the Paulding County water system. Number three, adopt job classification senior cartographer appraisal 3 for the Paulding County Tax Assessor's Office. Approve the renewal of existing contract services agreement for the Paulding County kiosk program for a period of 1 year. Designate a portion of the Board of Commissioners property as right-of-way for Bill Carew Parkway. Number 6, reappoint Tommy Morris, Matthew J. Yangle, and Kevin Sullivan to the Alcohol License Review Board for the term ending 12/31/16. Animal Control Hearing Board, term ending 12/31/15, Lynn Jackson, Mandy Byers, Jenny Dickerson, Todd Goolsby, Kerry Thomason. Number 8, Cemetery Preservation Commission, term ending 12/31/15, Hugh Walters, Larry Goldwright, J.P. Denton, Kathy Bookout, Van Westbrook. Number 9, Economic Development Organizational Board, Ed Cahill, appointed by the board for a 4-year term ending 12/31/18, and Charlie Watts appointed by the Paulding Board for a 2-year term 12/31/16. To the Board of Equalization, term ending 12/31/17, Alice T. James or James D. Dockery, alternate 4. Now, for this board, it is appointed by our grand jury, correct?
Yes.
So the grand jury makes those people on the equalization. Number 11, Fire Advisory Board, term ending 12/31/15, Jimmy McAdams, Brad Butler, Don Powell, 1 vacancy, proposed 3, and Joe Combs. Number 12, reappoint David Austin to the Wellstar Paulding Hospital Authority with the term ending 12/31/17. 13, reappoint Carolyn Wright and Alan Shipp to the Joint Development Authority of Carroll, Douglas, Harrison, Hurd, and Paulding County with the term ending 12/31/16. Reappoint Philip Martin, Vance Powell now, Tony Tibbetts to the Recreation Commission Board with the term ending 12/31/19.
Can I interrupt you on that?
Yes, sir.
We're gonna take my brother off that board. And the reason is y'all know he had a pretty bad work accident this year. He's had 7th surgery. He had the 7th surgery on last Wednesday. It's been a tough year. And so we're gonna remove him and I'll get somebody else on there for this next year.
Okay.
And I apologize for not doing that sooner.
Okay. Number 15, reappoint Kevin Yu to the Region 1 Emergency Medical Services Advisory Council with a term ending 12/31/16. Number 16, reappoint Bruce Coyle as Commission Representative to the Rolling Hills Resource Conservation and Development Council with a term ending 12/31/16. Number 17, reappoint Brenda Parrish to the Talatuna CAP Board with a term ending 12/31/17. Number 18, reappoint Jody Martin and Kenny Clark to the Keep Tall and Beautiful Board with a term ending 12/31/17. Number 19, Planning and Zoning Commission, term ending 12/31/15. Harold Stokes, Greg Farr, Alan Hornback, Matthew Chambers, Jody Palmer, James Kelly, and Joan Batt. Number 20, Water Sewer Advisory Board, Bobby Maddox, David Barnett, Carlton Rickstraw, Bobby Hollis, Michael Creighton, Jim Smith, Wayne Kirk. Number 21, Zoning Board of Appeals, Vinnie Parker, Scott Vanny, Jack Hill, George Hill, Dave LaRoe. Number 22, appoint Matt Uzelli to fill the unexpired term of Jim Underwood on the Paulding County Airport Authority and the Paulding Industrial Building Authority for a term ending 12/31/15. Number 23, Vernon Colette, appoint Vernon Colette to replace David Barnett on the Paulding County Health effective 1/1/2015. Would you like to move any of these items to the regular session?
I'd like to move number 22 to regular session.
Number 22, regular session. Old business, none. Under new business, discuss action to adopt resolution 14-35, authorizing an agreement with the clerk of Superior Court for the establishment of and mutual agreement of procedures for the Superior Court Clerk Technology and Office Improvement Fund.
Commissioners, this is an agenda item that deals with a state agency, a state authority called the Georgia Superior Court Clerks Cooperative Authority. This is the state agency that is responsible for collecting deed images when real estate deeds are recorded over at our clerk's office, as well as the other 158 counties throughout Georgia. They collect these images and they put them onto a website that the public can have access to by subscription. The public can also have access to it over at our clerk's office. But what it allows is that anyone throughout the state of Georgia or anyone in the country can get onto this website and they can see deed images for this county. They can see deed images for any county, as far north as Dade, as far south as Ware. But it is a component of public access that keeps people from having to travel through the state to go into the basement of the courthouse somewhere in order to see deed images when you can see them in your home. This is a program that's been in effect for several years. For every deed that gets uploaded from Paulding County, the state remits to us a certain fee that comes back to the county and has been used by Treva's office, the clerk, for technology improvements, public access improvements. I believe Treva has used this money for computers, for taking all the old plats that she has and making them digitally available, which helps to protect some of these old plats that go back decades and are quite fragile documents. And I believe Treva has some additional projects that she's using from a technology standpoint to record deeds. Presently, we can go back to 1990 online, and I believe Treva's intention is to use this money to go back with all the deeds that she has to make them available. So every deed that gets uploaded, there's a fee. Every deed that is viewed online that's copied, there is a fee that goes to the state, and that's remitted back to the county. This past year, the authority has asked that each of the clerks formally enter into an agreement with the Board of Commissioners to direct the use of those funds. And what is directed here is that those funds will continue to be used for information technology improvements inside the clerk's office and for additional public access. I know Treva is back there and will be available for any questions if you have them, but I will be available too.
Any questions? Sheldon, do you have anything you want to add to that? If you do, you got to come to the lecture. And Treva, you've been our Superior Court clerk for,
This is my 14th year. Yes. But this project, like Justin said, has been in effect since before me. 1998, they awarded each county in the state a $10,000 grant for improving technology. That's when they went live with the deed records online. And this is a good source of funds for the clerk's office to continue with technology. We've moved a lot of our stuff onto the web. Like Jason said, I have deeds back online now to 1990. I have imaged all the deeds back to 1848. So my next project is to work on indexing those images so that the authority will accept them for upload. And when we get those uploaded, you know, anyone who makes a copy, the county gets 50 cents back. So it's a good fund for the clerk's office to be able to preserve those records for, you know, for future, all our history that we've got here. I've got the plats all imaged, every plat we have in the deed brothers imaged, and you can view those online.
any questions?
Treva, have you had to hire anyone else, bring on any additional employees to handle all the imaging?
No, we do that with outsourcing. I have a deal with Main Street Technologies. They charge me $1.50 to index and image those documents, and I get 50 cents of that back once they transfer those to the clerk's authority. So it's a good deal.
But also every time somebody, say, pulls that image up and gets a copy, you get 50 cents for that. And all that has to keep rolling back toward maintaining this.
Right. That's correct.
What kind of money we're talking about, Treva, in that fund as we speak?
I believe there's a little over $500,000 in that fund. So you can tell I don't squander that money. I only use it for projects that I feel are beneficial. We receive probably between $7,000 and $8,000 a month coming from the clerk's authority. So there's a lot of money there, but it costs a lot of money over the years to keep those records maintained. So hopefully in the next few years I'll have all those old deed images indexed, and anyone anywhere can look at them on the clerk's authority website.
I hear a lot of complaints, but I don't hear any on the way you maintain records, so thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank
Job
you.
well done. Number 2, discuss action to adopt resolution 14-36, transferring Homer Leggett Memorial Park to the city of Hiram for use as a park and authorizing the execution of the deed for such purpose. Jason. And Mike.
Thank you. Commissioners, this is at Homer Leggett Park, is next to the Silver Comet Trail, just north of the caboose, south of the fire station. The city of Hiram has approached the county and desires to have this park transferred from the county to the city so that the city can expand its city park system. The park itself is surrounded on, it's about 2 acres, surrounded on 3 sides by the city of Hiram. Been working with Michael and the city. We don't foresee any issues with the transfer. I'll defer to Michael on any other details, but this resolution would accomplish that transfer. And just so you all know, the caboose will not go with this transfer. The caboose serves as the sheriff's station for purposes of the Silver Comet Trail. That will not be a part of this transfer.
And now the parking lots, the 2 parking lots at what we call the trailhead, we don't own those anyway, but Hiram will assume maintenance and care and
That's
upkeep
correct.
of those.
Those are situated within the state right-of-way. The right-of-way and the trail itself is still on property that's owned by the State Department of Transportation. So those two parking lots are within that right-of-way.
How much more you want to add to what Jason?
It's a pretty simple thing. It's a win-win for both of us, actually. As you can see, we're continuing to expand our park system as we grow. Our parks maintenance staff has not grown along with that. This one will help there. My understanding, the city of Hiram has some projects that they want to add that will also enhance that park, and I'm all for that. So win-win for both.
Mayor David, do you want to add anything to that?
Just thank you guys. We appreciate it.
Any questions?
Thanks for your work on it, Tom.
Number 3, discuss action to accept land donation of, and we'll change the record here, 177.78 acres. There's two 10.58, but in that, there was some land owned by George Powell, so we can't claim ownership of that, so we're talking about a donation of 177.78 acres of land known as Bent Brook subdivision located on the north side of Ivy Gulledge Road in land lot 766, 767, 68, 817, 18, 838, 839, 891 of the 3rd District, 3rd section of Paulding County, Georgia by Bent Brook LLC. And
Thank you, Commissioners. Theme of the day seems to be parks. It seems like if one door closes, a window opens. I was approached this summer by Ms. Karen Lang with Bent Brook LLC with an offer to donate this property to the county. It's a former subdivision. It was rezoned back in 2005 from R2 to PRD to be a 378-unit subdivision. Development of the subdivision did begin, but was stopped at about 2008. Nothing has happened on it since 2009. They would like to donate this property to the county. And I'd point out that there is plans for an 18-inch sewer outflow line on this property. It was to be installed with the development of the subdivision, but that did not occur. I have also spoken with the Recreation Department, and they are interested in this park, or this property, for a long-range passive park. There is plans in the comprehensive transportation plan for a trail along Possum Creek that runs through this property. So it would be a 177.7-acre donation, and Ms. Lang is here if you have any questions for her.
now explain how they go into a transfer. It goes into a land bank and then that's transferred in.
They have placed a conservation easement in favor of the Georgia Land Trust, and then in turn they want to donate the land to the county. So the land will be permanently protected, so it could not be developed any further.
You know an approximate value?
I believe that the last I looked, the value, it had decreased greatly over the years since the development did not occur. I can find out the exact amount for you, but I believe the amount of taxes they paid in 2014 was around $5,000. But I can get the exact value of the land for you.
You said Ms. Lane here, any questions? Gentlemen, y'all have any questions on this?
I do. I kind of look at it from a different standpoint, because I appreciate her giving us the land. However, that's land off our tax base, which we talked about revenue, so that's revenue we've lost. But my understanding, one of the reasons that we're really interested in it is, which Mike and I spoke about this earlier, is there's an outfall or a sewer line that was never built, that should have been built, that we kind of have a convoluted sewer system up there because that line doesn't exist, and that line has to go through this. So if you want to kind of explain that.
Certainly. This land originally came to us, it was through a development called landslide development. And there was a development group that was created that would bridge an existing gap in the sewer line along Possum Creek. Today, at the south side of this property, there's a sewer lift station that collects all the sewer that is upstream in the Possum Creek Basin, collects it, pumps it through various lift stations to hire them to the copper mine treatment plant for treatment. Not the right long-term thing to do. But you do short-term things, and that's okay, and that would have resolved itself had the recession not hit. Downstream from this property to the north, there's another lift station on Possum Creek. That collects the sewer within the Seven Hills Basin and transfers the sewer to the Pumpkin Vine water reuse facility. This property would have had an 18-inch outfall line, as Ms. Littman indicated, gravity line that would have been constructed during development, and that would allow us to remove an existing lift station. Lift stations, they're not your first choice. They're high electricity users. They're expensive to maintain, and the goal was to take that out of service. That hasn't occurred. So at some point, that will become part of the water system's responsibility to construct that, and as part of this donation, it is clear that that sewer easement will remain and that sewer line will one day be constructed.
We'll end up having to construct it, but again, it saves you money in the long run.
Absolutely.
Any other questions? Thank you very much. Number 4, discuss action to adopt resolution 14-37, a resolution to adopt a 12-month moratorium on acceptance of rezoning applications, special use permits applications, occupational tax certificates for payday loan, car title loan, check cashing, and pawn shops. I asked Ann to put this on the agenda. As I look at these types of businesses and I look at locations where I've seen similar business in other communities, I want a chance to study this a little bit more before we find ourselves inundated with these type of businesses. So, Ann, you want to talk on this?
Sure. As the chairman said, this is requesting action to adopt a 12-month moratorium. The Planning and Zoning Division of the Community Development Department has seen an increase in requests for information for these type of business, and that we would ask that you place the moratorium. Right now, if you wanted to do a pawn shop or a car title loan, which is essentially a pawn, just like a pawn shop, you have to get a special use permit. Car title loans and check cashing, or payday loans and check cashing facilities are permitted by right. So we are asking you to do a 12-month moratorium on any rezoning for any of these uses, a special use permit, or issuance of an occupational tax certificate for a period of 12 months so that we can look at what we have now, look at our zoning ordinance and the code of ordinance as it relates to all these and making recommendations for changes.
Why 12 months?
I don't think it'll take 12 months to look at it, but I didn't want to do 6 months, and if we can get it done quicker, we'll certainly bring it before 12 months and have it delivered.
Any other discussion? Number 5, discuss action to authorize the chairman to enter into a design build contract with the Garney Construction Team for the 48-inch raw water pipeline associated with Richland Creek Water Supply Program in the amount of $6,824,500. Kitty contract.
Good morning, Commissioners.
And you might restate, you are our...
Yes, I am
general
Program Manager for the Richland Creek Water Supply Program. And I'd like to take a few minutes and bring you up to date on some of the activity that's taken place within the program over the past month, and then talk specifically about the agenda item. Just as a quick refresher to remind everyone of the principal components of the Richland Creek Water Supply Program, we will be constructing a new 305-acre reservoir, as Mr. Jones alluded to, on the north side of the county, shown on this map is item number 1. There will be a new intake at the Etowah River that will transfer water from the Etowah River to fill that reservoir. The agenda item that we're talking about today is the item shown as number 3. It's a raw water pipeline that will extend from the raw water pump station to the reservoir site. And then on that reservoir site, number 4, there's a new water treatment plant, as well as a intake pump station that pulls water out of the reservoir. And then item number 5, because this facility is in the northern part of the county. There will be a series of distribution system improvements that will transfer water from the northern part of the county to the south. A little bit of an update on what's been occurring over the past month. As you recall, we've authorized final design of the water treatment plant, the Etowah River pump station, and the reservoir pump station. And that design is ongoing. Arcadis is preparing that design, and they're working on the 30% guaranteed maximum price for the project. In parallel with that, PC Construction, who the county authorized to provide CMAR services, is working on the 30% GMP estimate. We're going through an iterative process on that and bringing that down through a series of design value engineering recommendations before we bring it to the board.
Back up one
Yes.
second, explain CMAR.
Yes, a construction manager at risk. So we've brought on PC Construction, who is a contractor, to work hand in hand with the engineer during the design process, bringing their cost estimating capability and their constructability review capability for this exact specific reason. Their first shot at looking at the estimate was higher than anticipated, so now we can use those services to refine the design, find more efficient ways of doing the construction, and bring the costs down. So that process is working, and it's working well right now. We've done several items with public outreach associated with the program. We gave a briefing to the Paulding Water Department to bring all of the employees up to speed on the progress of the project. We also provided an update to the Cobb County Marietta Water Authority Board. Right now, Paulding County gets all of their water from Cobb County Marietta Water Authority, and they are in the process of doing long-term capital planning for that agency. So obviously, the future of Paulding County affects the future of Cobb County Marietta Water Authority. So they were very appreciative of being informed of the progress of this project. Additionally, there's been discussion of additional land procurement, and Mr. Jones brought that item up in front of you previously, and there's just another map of that property as well. Another interesting thing that has occurred, as you recall, GEFA, which is the Georgia Environmental Financing Authority, has provided low-interest loans associated with this project. GEFA has also approached the county about potentially being able to provide state direct investment funding. And that would be a grant that is given to the county. It's not a loan. In return for that, they would have to own part of the project. They would lease it back to the county, very low cost, say $1 a year, until the life of that asset has been used, and then it gets transferred completely to the county. The challenge that they have is by having part ownership, they have to find the right component. They obviously weren't interested in owning part of the plant or owning part of the reservoir itself. We mentioned the distribution system improvements, and there's some very large diameter pipelines. One of them will actually go down through State Road 61. And that would be a very, very good potential thing for them to take ownership of because it is their property. So they would own the pipeline in that property, and obviously the use would all be for Paulding County. We had a workshop on November 19th where we went through some different scenarios and looked at some different cost input and the various phasing of the distribution system lines. They're analyzing the data associated with that workshop, and they've requested to meet with the county on December 16th to be able to give some feedback in terms of the level of commitment that they think they can provide to the program. So on the meeting on the 18th, we plan to be able to report back to the county basically what comes out of that meeting with the state. It's very positive, and they're very proactive to be able to in being able to present or to be able to fund and assist this program moving forward. So with the action that's recommended today, if you recall this image, it shows all of the work that's going to take place on these different components in the design phase and then also in construction. The items that are shown in gray are items that have already moved forward. This item in blue is a design-build contract, so it not only includes the design phase, but it also includes the cost of construction of the pipeline as well. Once we have a better understanding of potential support on the distribution side, we'll be able to move forward on what improvements will take place on the distribution side. So the next steps, we're anticipating the finalized 30% GMP estimate by the 15th. So we plan to present this to the Commission on the 18th and inform you of the progress. As Mr. Jones indicated, the future, you're not going into a contract over this number, you're just basically giving the green light to move to the next design phase, which will be 60%. Also at that meeting, we'll have feedback from GEFA on the level of SDI funding so we can look at financing associated with that. The website has been quite active. Since the website inception, we've had 285 different individual visitors, a total of 424 sessions, and over 1,700 page visits. Last month, when we reported, it was at 900 page visits, so we've had another 800 over the last month, and people are averaging about 4.2 pages per visit to the website. So specifically talking about the agenda item, the design build project is for 14,000 feet of pipeline. It's a 48-inch pipeline that will transfer water from the intake to the reservoir. We're using a design build procurement so that we understand the final construction value right up front that'll allow us to assist with the final financing for the project. The design notice to proceed will not take place until May of 2015, and that's after the 404 permit will be received. So if there's some reason that the 404 permit is not received, we will just delay issuing that notice to proceed. So by moving forward on this action, the county is not obligating to any expenditures that would potentially have issue with the 404 permit should that not be received as anticipated. And there's a section of the pipeline right up next to the river that runs parallel to the Cartersville Airport. There has been discussion with Bartow County and Cartersville Airport. They are planning to expand that airport to the east and move some additional hangars there. So there's a small section of this pipeline that was taken out of this contract pending resolution of the expansion of that airport. It didn't make sense to move forward with the design if that line was going to be shifting out anyhow, and there's plenty of time to be able to design that additional section. So this is for 1,400 feet of the 48-inch pipeline. That will be the final scope. A design build procurement took place. An RFP was issued by the county, and it included requirements for qualifications, experience, project approach, and cost associated with this project. It was for the design and construction. A total of 5 proposals were received, and they were reviewed by the Paulding County Selection Committee, and I'd like to acknowledge that committee for their great effort in reviewing all of these. Mr. James Steele, Mr. Scott Green, Mr. David Barnett, and Mr. Bruce Coyle all served on that committee and did a great job looking at the qualifications, experience, and evaluating the costs associated with the various proposals. There was a total of 150 points that was available for scoring. Half of those were associated with cost. We wanted to weigh cost very heavily. The other 75 were associated with the qualifications of the firm, the experience of the team, and the understanding of the project. The highest scoring contractor team was Darney Construction, and they are being recommended for selection. And their total cost for design and construction is just about $6.8 million, $6.8245 to be exact. Garney Construction is headquartered in Kansas City, Missouri. They actually have a regional office in Alpharetta, and they've done 32 projects out of the Alpharetta office valued at over $233 million. So they're a very large contractor here in the region. They're actually ranked #1 in Engineering News Record in our for water transmission line construction. So you're actually getting the #1 company in the U.S. for water lines. They have experience with numerous similar design pipelines that are design-build projects, and they'll be supported by Croy Engineering, who has extensive Paulding County experience on the design side of things. So a very high-qualified design-build team, and they came in with a great cost for the project. That, any questions?
Yeah, so the $6.4 million does not include a section of the pipe.
That is correct, yes. And so we will look at once the decision is made in terms of the expansion of the airport, and they anticipate that in the next 6 months or so, they're looking at the availability of FAA funding, and that's sort of in progress. Then that final section of pipeline will be able to move forward with design and construction. At that point, that will come back in front of the commission if that's re-procured as a separate project, or potentially negotiated with this pipeline contractor to connect for that.
And in a design build, in other words, you gotta have 48-inch pipe, this is the route it's going, they're agreeing for $6.4 million, they'll do it.
That's correct. Yeah, they'll do the design. Because we don't own the property yet, there wasn't a geotechnical investigation that was done, so we basically made allowance items for rock. So we assumed a certain amount of rock. We feel confident that we've allocated enough to cover it, but for some reason, if they encounter more rock than what we've assumed, then that would be a change of conditions, but we feel confident in terms of.
And you said something in there that they won't actually begin design until May.
Of 2015, that is correct. And then,
This gives us a number
Yes, sir.
that we have to work with so that when we're seeking funding, you know, realistic time.
yes, sir. Yep, that's exactly.
We met with Bartow County on numerous occasions, and one of the plans that they're looking at is to tunnel part of old Alabama underneath the airport as it connects in with Highway 41. So they'll actually build, the airport will remain on top of old Alabama, and it'll be tunneled underneath. So in meeting with them, we have different sets of plans to look at this 1,400 feet, but they've been very cooperative. This goes back to their previous chairman and now their current chairman, Steve Taylor. So we try to keep them informed where we are on this entire process. The money that's been mentioned in the state direct investment is money that's been set aside by our legislature and the governor. And in the governor's plan for state direct investment, there's up to $39 million that will be available to Paula. There were something like 12 projects, reservoir projects throughout the state the governor had looked at, and it looks like during his term, he may be able to build 1, 2, or 3. Paulding being in that top echelon of top 1 or 2 projects. So we're looking forward to see what part of that $39 million that will not have to be repaid. And what they get in place of that, as Kelly said, is they will own some asset in our county. And as our distribution line is set up now, it runs east-west as it flows in from Cobb area water. So we'll have to build a system that also runs north-south. So part of what this money will go towards is that pipeline. Is that
Yes, sir.
correct?
Yep.
Any questions for Kevin? Thank you all for serving on that committee. And thank you, appreciate what you've done. We'll move on to number 6, discuss action to accept Seven Hills Connector, 2.15 miles in length between Cedar Crest Road and State Route 92 for perpetual maintenance and inclusion in the county public road system effective October 31st, 2014. Scott Green.
Great, thank you. This is kind of a new item for us. I can't think of a time we've brought you a new road to accept and add to our road system. But this is something we need to do, not because we've finished the work, but because the state doesn't recognize this road as part of our county route system, and we can't get it classified and added to the state maps unless we officially accept it. So we're asking you to do that today. It's the 2 miles that was constructed between Cedar Crest Road and State Route 92. A portion of that was relocated of the old Ackworth Road that dead ended back there. And then there's a couple side streets included in this that connect to the road. And we completed, there just 100 feet or so of the 2 or 3 side roads along this corridor that we want to add to our map system officially. So we're asking for your approval for that today.
One of the prettiest roads in our system, and also built this with a walking trail beside it, and it's beautifully maintained.
That's correct, and that trail's being well used.
As we begin construction and work on Cedar Crest Road, this is a great outlet for folks up in the Biltwater and Seven Hills area as the lanes get expanded on Cedar Crest and the Cobb section. So this will be very, very helpful. Any questions of Scott? Number 7, discuss action to approve the first amendment to Seven Hills Development Agreement.
All right, thank you. We're bringing you an item today to amend the development agreement that has been in place for almost 10 years for the Seven Hills development. This is one of our largest, if not the largest subdivision ever built in our county. This agreement has gone on 10 years, and they're just now nearing the halfway point in the build out of the total land area in this area. At that rate, we could be looking at another 10 years before this agreement is actually finalized. There are a couple items of interest in there that we are recommending that DOT take over for administration. And that's where we are modifying the existing roads. The two roads that would be modified, that we're asking to take the cash payment in lieu, it would be the Mount Moriah Road that runs from the backside of this development all the way down to Highway 61. That's over 3 miles. And then the Seven Hills Boulevard itself, which has been under county maintenance for several years now. And at some point, this development agreement requires that it be expanded. That is defined in the development agreement. Once they reach 1,800 lots, that has to be done. That could be about 3 years out still. The Mount Moriah portion has no sunset. Basically, it could be the last thing ever done under the agreement when the last phase or last house is actually built. And as far as Mount Moriah, that road needs work now. And what we'd like to do is take the receipts, if you approve this, and go ahead and pave the road and upgrade it in just probably just a year or two, rather than waiting until it's triggered by the development agreement. Another thing that we've done in the past, or this is similar to what we've done in the past with the bridge over Pumpkin Vine Creek, where we replaced the one-lane bridge on Harmony Grove Church Road that was needed to be done quickly to serve the new North Paulding campus. We approached that developer and said, if you'll pay the equivalent cost of that bridge, we'll manage it. And we were able to build a very nice bridge quickly, much more quickly than it would have been done. We also use this approach on several other smaller projects, including the traffic light at Harmony Grove and Cedar Crest, and the major improvement we did around 2005 at Crossroads at Cedar Crest and 92. And also, I'd like to add that the developer has done a good job building their streets, but we, by building it ourselves and taking care of our own right-of-way, we think we can do it better and the exact design that we want. And that's another reason we'd like to recommend this, along with the acceleration of Littleton Christmas.
Any questions, Scott?
So you're pretty sure the 1.22 mil pave that 3 miles, Scott?
We will. I mean, that particular portion is basically an inch and a quarter of top cutting. There is also some money in there for upgrading the gravel portion of Mount Moriah. We have in this estimate $470,000 for the Mount Moriah improvements. And then we have about $750,000 for improving Seven Hills Boulevard itself. And we run through our numbers. It's a number we can work with, and we're confident we can get the work done.
When you say improve Seven Hills Parkway, you're talking about actually extending the parkway look on further down. Is that what you're talking about?
Actually, no, it's actually an expansion of the existing boulevard from Cedar Crest coming down the hill into the area where the amenity package is, the tennis courts and the pool. That is a 2-lane road coming in, but it is designed to ultimately be a 4-lane road. And we're looking at 7,000 to 8,000 cars a day on that road. Eventually, there will be congestion there and improvements needed. So, and as well as throughout the whole development, maybe in a decade or 2 or 3, as traffic moves through that area, it could reach a capacity problem. And this portion of the agreement is just to expand from Cedar Crest coming down the hill out to where the drainage has been set back, and it's all been pre-designed that way. It wasn't triggered and wasn't needed at the first phase of the development.
And then this will remove the cap of 1,800 lots.
That eliminates that, basically the threat of the point where we would have to hold permits if they reach that point and the improvements were not complete.
And this includes developments like Nature's Walk, which is part of that, but they're not, what am I trying to say? They will no longer be restricted about hitting that net.
That's
Mr. Barnett, that's your district. Any questions?
No, sir. Get up to speed so.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, just a comment on Commissioner Carmichael's the cost. We've been working on this for quite some time, and at the first cut, the contractor's number or the developer's number was somewhere around $800,000. And y'all have all been around Scott Green to realize that that he's a very detailed engineer. He's an engineer's engineer. And so the developer's estimate was around 800,000. Scott's estimate was around 1.2 million. So they negotiated and settled on 1.2 million. Scott did a great job on this.
Thank you.
Number 8, discuss action to authorize the chairman to enter into a contract with Waterworks Incorporated for water and sewer system management consulting contract. Mike Evans.
Mr. Chairman, we lost our water system director, Michael Carter, who has done an excellent job with the water system when he decided to go into private sector about 6 weeks ago. That left quite a hole in our management structure, not only with the water system, but within the county. We looked to him for a lot of things. I had a conversation with a fellow named Don Fry, who I've had the pleasure of knowing for close to 25 years, I guess. And Don's forgotten more about water and sewer than I'll probably ever know. And as I spoke to him, he mentioned someone who worked for his company who was finishing up a contract, some contract work. It's a lady named Lori Ashmore. Lori's a professional engineer. And the more I talked to Don about what I need, I said, what I really need is an engineer who has experience in water and sewer work, who has experience working with, a county water and sewer utility that could deal with a reservoir and a program manager. He said, well, let me tell you about Lori. She was the former head of the Water and Sewer Authority for Rockdale County. She helped build the reservoir in Rockdale County, and Brown and Call was the program manager back in the late 90s when that happened. I said, well, let's meet this lady. Mr. Chairman, you've met her. Tabitha, you've met her, and Brian Acker, our HR director, has met her. We interviewed her. We liked her. She will be a contract employee for Paulding County, working for Waterworks Group. So you will be hiring Waterworks Group. She will come in and augment our existing management staff until we can advertise and appoint a director. She will have the same authorities as a director does. Her contract will be on 6-month renewals. The first one is an automatic renewal. There are provisions in the contract that if you like the work that she's doing 6 months from now and y'all want to bring her on as a director, that's your prerogative. If at the end of the contract you go, we want to go a different direction, you have that flexibility as well. But this fulfills that gap. And I want to make clear, this is in no way a reflection on the performance that James Steele has exhibited to Paulding County. He has been an excellent fill-in during Michael Carter's absence. He has experienced trial by fire. He's done a great job. He sleeps less than he used to. But James will help Lori if you approve this contract to move the system forward. As you know, there are a lot of things on the water system's plate. We have closed the water system building on West Hiram Parkway to make way for Georgia State Patrol headquarters. They have relocated to this facility. A new water system building is under design, will be under construction after the first of the year on Macklin Road, in addition to the other ongoing maintenance projects and reservoir. So it's an active department right now, and I think Lori will bring a lot of continuity to the leadership there.
Any questions for Mike?
In 6 months, is there no buyout or contract or nothing, or works?
It's approved at 6-month intervals. So if you get to month 4 and you say, hey, look, this just isn't working out for us, then yeah, you have to buy out the remaining 6 months of that contract. The contract rate is $12,922 per month. That is reflective of a contract rate for an employee. We will not be paying health care costs. We will not be paying Social Security, Medicare, any of those other expenses. And let me explain to you how we arrived at that number. When we first saw the number from Mr. Fry's company, it was higher than what we could accept. I asked our HR director to go back and say, exactly what does it cost? Let's use Michael Carter as a benchmark. What did it cost us to have Michael Carter here? His salary is around $100,000 a year. But in addition to that, when you add up all the other benefits that go with it, is what we would expect, is what we generally see. It's about a 1.45 multiplier. So a $100,000 employee costs you about $145,000. That's what this number reflects. This is 5% higher than that number.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much. There's no executive session. Public participation on a non-agenda item, Kathy Helms, on the importance of community meetings.
Good morning. Still morning. All right, ready? As we near the end of 2014 in their terms of office, I want to thank Commissioner Grams and Barnett. Public service is a hard job. But community meetings are significant to get public input. Ignoring citizens tends to anger many, probably more than a dozen or so. Let me explain. There are not always requirements to have community meetings, but without public support, we run the risk of opposition in large numbers. Over 20,000 people voted for anti-airport candidates in November. You might have had more support if you'd rolled this commercial idea out as some marketing tactics. I often said you could probably have sold Disney, Colorado, or even Vegas, but you chose not to reach out to the citizens. You said we couldn't do anything about it. It was a done deal. It was a choice. 4 of 5 of you chose to go this route. Mr. Grant, you seemed giddy when you talked about you and Commissioner Carmichael flying to New York to view other airports. Yet you didn't say anything to the citizens in Post 3 or Post 1 for over a year. The IGA has your name all over it. Some of the things that are in there you openly have discussed at BOC meetings. You voted against the IGA, but for the amendment. Let's talk about the movie studio. You, Mr. Graham, promised it would bring much-needed jobs to Pauling by the thousands. Yet the studio remains mostly unused and losing money every year. A $2 million mistake certainly would have cost us our job, even if we learned from it. Those millions of dollars are not your money. The citizens are paying the bond costs for the studio. Do you remember talking about being in the zone? And the chairman's many, many ideas, and lots of them are really stupid. Mr. Barnett, he made the statement to an AJC reporter that the airport was shoved down our throats. Yet you find it acceptable to shove commercialization down our throats too, without as much as a public meeting in Post 4. When I asked you to recuse yourself from voting for the 4-star project, we were told anything under $5,000 was not a substantial campaign contribution. 4 stars in Texas, isn't it? So why do you and others find it necessary to demagogue some for taking outside money, including contributions that weren't close to $5,000? Looking over your campaign disclosures, it is a fact outside businesses and individuals contributed to your campaign. Mr. Chairman, you have no problem telling the citizens when they're out of order and having them removed from meetings. Yet, you let a county employee, without being recognized, go on, intimidating a citizen during the budget hearing. He said this was not the time to be discussing the airport budget. So when is the proper time? Your disgust with citizens that disagree with you is evident. We get it. I'm sickened every time I hear Delta, Delta, Delta. Gentlemen, I have never spoken to Delta. Never. Other than a letter to which I got no response, I have had no contact with anyone at Delta. By the way, Delta is an airline, not an airport. There is an elephant in the room, and the trust issues abound between many citizens and our elected officials because you chose not to have community meetings or hear what we might have to say. Yes, there are trust issues, because some of you feel you can't trust the citizens, the very ones that elected you. You didn't want to include them in the decision-making. Was it because you knew there would be opposition? Now we're having a hard time trusting you. All of you that voted for the IGA gave away our most costly asset to a company with outside money, an employee that doesn't even live in Polk County. Again, without any citizen input. We're not stupid. We realize the IGA was done to keep newly elected commissioners from upsetting the pet, really, really stupid idea. As a small business owner, I'm certainly not against progress. My expectation is that of sensible, controlled growth. What happened to the technology park at the airport? The same one the state gave us grant money to run fiber optics to. Do you want us to believe there are no jobs in the technology field? Of that supposed 75% that leave the county every day, do you realize how many have jobs in that very field? Probably not, since you don't seem to be concerned about people, just grandiose schemes. My hope is that in January, we will have commissioners that will indeed listen to what the people have to say, bringing real, viable, high-paying jobs to Paulding County. If they ask citizens to back bonds for those projects, let's have a community meeting with data and facts, not made-up figures, so together we can make informed decisions. None of us is as smart as all of us. 3 little words could have changed all this. Just 3 little words. No commercial airport. As you are long gone from elected office, we will be paying for stupid ideas for years. To those that are leaving, I sincerely wish you nothing but the best. Thank you.
Before we adjourn, I would like to thank Tommy Graham and David Barnett for their fabulous years of dedicated service. This includes all your families. It's not an easy job, and I appreciate everything that y'all do. So with that, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion second, all in favor? Let's give them a standing ovation. Thank you very much.